During the meeting with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, Trump said he was very unhappy with Russia and disappointed in President Vladimir Putin. This change of heart could spell a turning point in the war in Ukraine, as President Trump announced more significant help to force Vladimir Putin to the negotiating table. What better person to join me to discuss the shifting tides of U.S. administration in the context of war in Ukraine than Ivana Stradner, research fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Ivana, good evening. Thank you so much for joining me on the program again.
Good evening. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Pleasure. So let's start with the latest. We've heard from President Trump. He said, I'm very unhappy with Russia. We will be doing secondary tariffs if we don't have a deal in 50 days. It's very simple, and there will be at least 100% tariffs. I mean, no disrespect, but 50 days seem quite excessive for a country that's been plowing Ukraine day and night, causing death and destruction. Why wait so long? And I thought that Mr. Trump was actually disenchanted by the Russian aggression. What do you make of this?
I think President Trump is growing more and more dissatisfied with Moscow. And he has been trying to talk nicely to Putin for months, but every time when he offered a concession, Putin would retaliate with more drone attacks. Just take a look at yesterday's massive drone attacks. So I'm equally surprised that we have to wait for 50 days, but I also think that that's part of the American way of negotiations, where it is always giving one way to your opponent to respond. On the other hand, I do believe that his decision to ramp up Ukraine with more weapons against Russia is a step in the right direction, and the United States is also preparing sanctions on Russia. So there are really some steps that are moving in the right directions. I think President Trump is understanding that Putin is not willing to negotiate in good faith, and President Trump is right to give Putin a taste of his own medicine. This is how peace through strength actually works, and it's past time to really stop Kremlin's manipulation. However, I think it's also very important to understand what Putin wants, and Putin has been candid about his desire to subjugate Ukraine, and not only that, but also to challenge NATO. I know that there is a lot of discussion about hybrid warfare activities also where you are right now in Poland, but only there.
Definitely.
We have sabotage activities across the West. So we also cannot be naive about Putin's actions. This morning, believe it or not, SVR just stated how NATO is dragging Moldova into a war. So this September, I'm very confident to say if we do not stop Putin now, he's not going to stop at Ukraine.
We are here to also discuss this shift that happened in the U.S. administration when it comes to Ukraine. We just spoke about the meeting that took place today. We've heard from one of EU Solidarity MPs, Ukrainian MPs, Maria Ionova, who said that this approach that Mr. Trump is taking is truly transformative. We also heard from Senator Graham, who on CBS said in the coming days you'll see weapons flowing at a record level. One of the biggest miscalculations Putin has made is to play Trump. And you just watch in the coming days and weeks, there's going to be massive effort to get Putin to the table. Let's dig deeper. Is this truly about constant Russian attacks, or perhaps there is more to it that meets the eye?
I think that President Trump genuinely wants to end this war. President Trump has been trying to talk nicely to Putin for months and months. But that is because, and with not so much success, and that is because I think many people in Washington do not understand how Putin thinks, because the Kremlin thinks differently than Washington. I would love actually to share an old Russian joke with your audience. Basically, there is a peasant who lives between two houses that each have a cow, and he complains to God that he doesn't have his own. When God offers to provide him with one, the peasant basically replied, "No, I'd prefer that you just kill my neighbor's cows." And it's exactly how Putin's worldview operates on international politics. He doesn't see negotiations in good faith. For him, it's not even you win, I lose, or I win and you lose. It's like lose-lose type of a strategy, which is very irrational for a
And
lot of
very
people in the
destructive at the
West. And
same
that's
time.
why, absolutely, because to counter your enemy, you have to actually think like them and to understand their motivations. And President Trump was absolutely right during the NATO summit to commit to Article 5. And the second thing, he also questioned the definition of Article 5, which is extremely important given that I just mentioned Russian sabotage activities and Russian hybrid warfare activities in the West. So make no mistake, if we do not stop Putin now, he's going to continue. And I think Trump is really understanding more and more that Putin is not a guy who only cares about business and trade. Peace through trade never worked, and it will not work this time either. So I'm very, very excited really to see President Trump's new steps to show peace through strength. And I already see in Russian news that they are ready and very dissatisfied. Make no mistake, Putin is going to again start with his nuclear threats, but that's typical, Moscow strategy to make sure that we do not help Ukraine.
Let's hope these will remain to be only threats. Let's jump into the subject of Yulia Sviridenko now to become the prime minister. We've heard from President Zelensky. He announced it on X that she is going to take the post. Do you think that this change actually has something to do with how Zelensky wants to nurture this relationship with the U.S. at such a pivotal point?
I think President Zelensky has been criticized a lot in the U.S. about that there are no elections in Ukraine, et cetera, et cetera. So he's really also trying to put certain, efforts in that sense. Why that change has just come out of the blue recently, I really don't know. But President Zelensky is definitely trying to make more cooperation with the United States. And as a matter of fact, what I mentioned multiple times in your show, the United States, we are not like a Red Cross just to be there to help, out of idealism. I think helping Ukraine very much helps our own interests here in Washington, D.C., because peace in Europe means also peace in the United States. And we can learn so much from Ukraine. Just take a look at how Ukraine is fighting this war, the drone attacks, and how Ukraine is building its own infrastructure when it comes to weapons. So there is so much that we can actually learn from Ukraine. So I think Trump is more and more understanding the value that Ukraine brings to the table with Washington.
We've heard from President Trump. He said that billions of dollars of military equipment will be delivered and distributed to Ukraine. Some of the weapons actually in days to come, but he made concessions that the EU will have to pay for it in full. Do you think that Europe is ready for such a spending?
I think there is so much talk in Europe about helping Ukraine. And this is truly like a ball in Europe's court. So it is really past time for Europe to step up and to deliver not only words, but weapons to Ukraine. So this is a test for Europe and I truly hope that the leaders, whether they're sitting in Brussels, in Berlin, or Paris, will follow through on their promises. Because, as I mentioned, and I think leaders also in Brussels, but also in Paris and Berlin would agree that this war is not going to stop at Ukraine until we stop Putin. So let's see what happens there. But the good news is that the United States is ready to help.
Ivana, our time is coming to an end very shortly, but I wanted to ask you this final question. With the recent announcement of those 30% tariffs that we've heard from Washington, how do you think this is going to affect the relationship between the U.S. and Europe, especially in the context of defense?
So if you're referring to tariffs on Europe, I think that's not a great, idea to treat our allies when it comes to tariffs, and that will definitely impact a lot of issues. But if you are also referring to those tariffs that are announced for Russian allies, I think that's a really step in the right direction, because Putin is already losing his allies, and this is a good signal that there are a lot of countries, let's call a spade in Europe, that are using as a sanctions invasion still to operate and cooperate with Russia. So if you're referring to those tariffs, I think that's a right thing to do.
Definitely an important feature to be able to tell who is actually on your side and who is not. Ivana, thank you so much. Ivana Stradner, Research Fellow at the Foundation of Defense for Democracies, was my guest.
Always a pleasure to speak with you.
Thank you. And so this would be all for now here on World News Tonight. Thank you so much for joining. I'm Klaudia Czerwińska. Please do stay tuned. We're back in just a moment with more news and features, and we'll see you there.